Welcome everyone. My name is Emily Mithner and I'm founder and president of NY Creative Interns. And we are a community dedicated to inspiring career optimism in young creatives. So we do this by doing all sorts of educational and social events throughout the year, ranging from small workshops to online workshops like this, to small panels, to large full-day conferences. I actually see some folks in the chat whose names I recognize who have attended our Find and Follow Your Passion conference that we do once a semester. A super early save the date. Our next installment is going to be November 9th at the New School. So that's pretty exciting. It's where we were hosted this past April. And this summer, we're in a couple of weeks now, we're doing our first ever summer opportunity mixer, which is our spin on a career fair. So with all of our events, we work really hard to make them more fun, more casual, but just as productive as normal career and networking events. And we do that specifically geared towards young creatives who, it may be your first, second, third networking event. So we help you get your feet wet and have a great time meeting not only, of course, your peers and people like you who you can collaborate with in the future, but also established creative professionals from all sorts of really amazing companies, from big ones like MTV to startups like Tumblr to nonprofits like DoSomething.org. We're also the largest meetup for interns and recent grads in the country. So we have this virtual series of workshops that we've been doing, as I mentioned, specifically in preparation for those who are attending our summer opportunity mixer this coming Wednesday, July 31st. So although it'll be geared towards that a little bit, these are things that anyone can apply to their own job hunt and resume and cover letters. I wish I could do a raise of hands of who in the room is attending. Maybe you could just chat that you're going to be at the mixer if you are. I can look back and see. I see Christina Brown. We know her. Victoria, Edric, awesome. Ooh, some new names, very exciting. So yeah, we're really looking forward to meeting you there, and this is a fun way to get to know each other and to get prepped before then. So the number one thing that I'd love for you to keep in mind throughout this entire workshop and moving forward in any job or internship that you're applying for is the most important thing that you should be doing when applying for jobs is to customize each application for each job. And I know what a lot of you are thinking, that this is really overwhelming, right? I would say the average person for internships or for a job, either if you need a first job or you're transitioning, you might apply to dozens of jobs within a month or more than that. And so the idea of creating a new cover letter and a new resume each time can seem nearly impossible. But what we found from talking to many recruiters, people job hunting in general, is that yes, it's riskier to put more time and effort, more eggs in less baskets in terms of putting more effort into each application, but the results are going to be much higher. So we strongly suggest that you create a new cover letter and resume for each job. And of course, you're going to have a base that you'll be working from, but making specific tweaks is going to be really important. And so we're going to show you throughout the rest of this presentation how you can take a job description and integrate that directly into both your resume and your cover letter. I'm actually going to take off my glasses because I can see there's a glare. So first I thought it would make sense to talk about my resume and cover letter story. So I majored in graphic design, and when I was in school about to graduate, even in my last year, I was pretty confused about what I wanted to do. I had gone into school thinking I was going to do business, then marketing, then I switched over to graphic design. I had also found a love for event planning, and so I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do after graduation, nor was I sure what I wanted to do when I got into college. That's another story. But one thing I knew is I loved Time Out New York magazine. And on one of my runs of hunting online for companies and job openings, I found the Time Out New York careers page, and they were looking for a marketing and events intern and a design intern. And I thought, this is it. I'm going to work at Time Out New York. I don't care how much time and effort I need to put into it. this is perfect for me. I'm going to be perfect for them, and so I'm going to make this happen. So their deadline for spring interns was December 6th to apply, and I spent hours working on my resume and cover letter, working with family and friends to give me feedback, with my career center to give me feedback, and professors, and I think really, all of that paid off because I did end up getting the internship at Time Out New York as the marketing and events intern, and it worked out just the way I had wanted, which was that they had a design intern as well, but they kind of became MIA, so I ended up being able to do design work as well as marketing and events work while I was at Time Out. So that was really exciting. And so what you're about to see is my actual resume and cover letter that I submitted. So first and foremost, your search is going to start with the job description, right? So what I find is really, really helpful is when you have a job description to pick it apart and highlight what they're really looking for and highlight keywords. So this is my quick highlight of what are they really looking for. So planning, creation, and execution of special events, for custom events, merchandising programs, working with high-profile partners, writing magazine promo pages, and helping to edit film footage, which, by the way, I had no experience in. Working in a fast-paced environment, team player, positive can-do attitude, multitask, writing, excellent writing, phone, and communication skills, interest in the arts, being able to work 3 or more days, and, of course, they wanted wanted me to email their cover letter, resume, and availability. So I think it's helpful to just really focus in and hone in on what qualities and aspects and responsibilities you're gonna need to have. And I will point out that I didn't have all these things. I wasn't actually able to work 3 or more consecutive days at the time, and I had never edited film footage. I had never worked with any big brands or, truly high-profile clients or companies or anything like that. But I wanted this really bad, and I still love Time Out New York. And so one thing I think that's worth bringing up is there's some stat, and I'm not going to say the specific numbers because I'm unsure of them, but that when there's a job description with certain requirements, say there's 10 requirements, if a female has 7 of those, she might not apply because she'll think, you know what, I don't have all the requirements, I'm never going to make it, they're not going to pick me. Males, if out of the 10 they have 4 or 5 requirements, they'll think, I'm perfect for this, I'm going to get it, I'll make it happen. So just for the ladies in the audience, something to keep in mind, and really just in general, you might not always fit every single requirement, and that's okay. If you fit the majority of them and you're confident that you can be a quick learner and pick up on things, then I think it's worthwhile to still apply if you think it's a role and a company you'd really love to work at. And then something else that I'd like to bring up, at New York Creative Interns, we're huge, huge fans, of course, of networking, right? And it's always amazing if you can get your foot in the door by meeting someone at an event like ours, or connecting with someone online, or having a reference, and that you're going to have much more success if you're able to get your resume handed in that way, rather than through the general application pool, that black hole that we like to call of the internet. And but this role, just to give the background, I had no connection to Time Out New York whatsoever. I got this job in a totally normal application process, no connections, nothing like that. We don't think there's anything wrong with having connections when you get a job that's fantastic, but I would like to note that this was completely, they didn't know me at all, no background. Okay, so starting off, so basically what I'm showing you in these slides is chunks of my cover letter and resume and how I specifically related these chunks to what they asked for in the job description. So first of all, I lead off my cover letter with Dear Mrs. Welch. I was lucky because in this application, they actually said who you'd be emailing. So I was able to, address it to a specific person, which I know is a big question people often have, because usually there is not a specific name, which you'll see an example of what you can do if that's the case in an upcoming example. But so I made sure I used her name. So it's a little small, so I'll just quickly read it. It's with great enthusiasm that I send you my attached resume for Timeout's Marketing and Events internship. The position combines my many interests and would enable me to use my skills and further develop them. As a result of my previous experience, I have become well-versed in how to find the coolest events in the city and admire Timeout New York for being the best resource. I live to organize events, and better yet, I'm extremely good at it. In the spring of my junior year, I was simultaneously organizing 2 huge events, a fine arts career night and a sex toy raffle fundraiser. I could be found researching sex toys, checking multiple Gmail accounts, or picking out hors d'oeuvres. Both events were extremely successful. Their completion left me feeling elated and accomplished. So, I'm going to be honest here, I do read that opening paragraph and think, wow, I was really, really confident, which, I think is good to an extent. Looking back now, I might have toned it down a little bit. But a few other important things to point out here. Within this opening paragraph, I was, of course, addressing the fact that I have planned, created, and executed events. And that I have multitasked by planning 2 events at the same time, and even specifically talked about what those different tasks were. And the other really important thing here is that, number one, I mentioned Timeout New York in my intro straight off the bat, that I am applying for your specific role at your specific company. And I also made a point to say how I admired the company, and I know about the company, I use it, and I'm a fan. And that's extremely important, because one of the number one things we hear from hiring managers and recruiters is that they don't feel like people are applying to their company and their job. They feel like they're just trying to get any job at any company. And really great hires happen when there's a real passion for that role and that job, or that company. So here's the next paragraph. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'll just pull out these highlighted aspects. So I was co-president of the Hofstra Association of Graphic Arts, which shows that I have an interest in the arts, entertainment, and culture, which was one of their requirements. I specifically noted that during the planning of an event, a career event for the Graphic Design Club, I wanted to use the most prestigious venue on campus, and so I wrote budget requests to student government and the Fine Arts Department and received full monetary support in order to use this venue. So, as I mentioned, I had never had any experience working with a truly prestigious or high-profile company or client, but in my own way, I sort of had, so I made sure to include that. And of course, I think many jobs require excellent writing, phone, and communication skills, so I was able to demonstrate that by showing that I earned financial support from different departments on campus. So this next paragraph, I talk about my experience directing the vagina monologues. And so just, again, talking about excellent writing, phone, and communication skills. Directing a play definitely takes a lot of communication with a lot of different people. And so that was just another way to demonstrate that I had those skills and background. And then they also had team player. When you're directing a play, you're working with lots of different people. You're working with crew members, publicity staff, and of course the actors and actresses. So that demonstrated my team player experience. And they had positive can-do attitude, so I wanted to make sure that I put something specifically about that. So the sentence noting that was, with a positive attitude, I wrote a proposal to Babeland, a well-known sex toy company in New York City, and they gladly accepted my terms. So again, the communication skills and talking about my positive attitude in one sentence. And so here's a part of the job description, again, that I really had no experience with, and that was helping to edit film footage. I was at the time the excited new owner of a Mac, so I did have the simple iMovie platform available to me. And as I mentioned, I really wanted this internship, and I told everyone about it, and one of my great professors, Tom Klinkostine, said, hey, you know, if you really want it, you should do something different to stand out. And so he encouraged me to create a video. So I probably spent about 2 to 3 hours coming up with an idea of what I would talk about. I didn't write out a script or anything, but of course I did practice what I was going to say a few times. And I made a super short, looks like 1-minute video, picking out an experience that I thought was really specifically great for Time Out, showing them how I really love them, and recorded it. Edited it on iMovie, learned as I went, did Google searches to figure out how to export to QuickTime and upload to YouTube, and I think this was actually my first YouTube video. And you know, I think a lot of times people ask, how am I supposed to get these jobs without experience? And it's definitely something everyone struggles with, right? That conundrum of, I need an opportunity to get experience, but I have no experience. How do I get an opportunity? And I think in this day and age, we're extremely lucky that we have a lot of tools like this at our fingertips, many which are free. And there's so many resources online in terms of free classes, workshops, forums that can teach us how to do things like this. You know, websites, places to build web presences, super easy. We had a social media workshop last week, which you can watch the recording of. I'll send that video in the follow-up. But there, you know, there's going to be times where maybe you feel helpless because you don't have the experience needed to get the job that you want. But I think being super proactive and figuring out a way to make it happen and getting that experience on your own terms is something that will become really valuable to you and really important within your career. So here's the closing sentence of my cover letter, where I just, of course, note the availability because they specifically wanted to know when I would be able to start and what days of the week I would be available. Now, every job description is different, and I think companies use this sort of thing to different extents, but a lot of times companies will ask for very specific things in the job description, and they use that as a way to eliminate people. Because if you're applying, say, especially to a large company for a role where there's maybe likely hundreds of applicants, they need a reason to get rid of people. So if you can't follow the instructions on their job application, for them, that's great, easy. You know, cross it off, one less resume to read. So you have to be extremely diligent in paying attention to the details of exactly what they're requesting. It's also a good thing to do because many job applications require the attention to detail requirement or personality trait. So it seems simple, but make sure you give them everything they ask for in the format they ask for. So I just pulled a few sections of my resume to highlight again how I took those specific highlights in the job description and made sure to address them in my bullets. So first and foremost, in my very first bullet, I said how I utilized Time Out New York magazine student guides in one of my events as a resident assistant. Again, showing that I'm not just applying for any job, I am obsessed with Time Out New York, and I have the experience and bullets on my resume to prove it. I have that I worked in teams with other resident assistants, again, showing that I'm a team player. I also, in one of my jobs, I wrote invitations and acceptances for email blasts, websites, and message boards in terms of my experience organizing an ultimate frisbee tournament on campus. And then in my experience again as an event planner and the Vagina Monologues, I noted that I surpassed a goal by raising $1,500 for a local domestic violence shelter at a standing room only event in a giant venue. So I think something that's really important to do as much as possible is to include action-oriented or action and results-oriented bullets. So if you were a social media intern, then you probably managed Facebook and Twitter. Well, most social media interns probably manage Facebook and Twitter, so that doesn't really help you stand out. So how you're going to stand out is by showing some results. So what resulted as, what was a result of you managing the Twitter and Facebook? Talk about how many followers you gained. Talk about the percent increase in followers, which is sometimes a better number to use than the actual follower number if you have a small following in general. Instead of saying that you sent mailings out every day, talk about how many mailings that you sent out. Did you do bulk mailings of over 500 letters a day? That's impressive. That's more impressive than just sending mailings, right? That's what everybody does. Do you field phone calls at the reception desk, or do you field over 3 dozen calls an hour? I don't know. But, just think in terms of, other people who are applying might have similar skills that you have and similar experiences, so how can you make yours stand out? And I know as somebody who's, say, applying for internships or your first job, you have to work a little hard to come up with those results-oriented bullets. As you can see from mine, I don't have a ton of them because I was just a college student, so I didn't have a ton of that type of experience, but I think it's good to include as many as possible. And the other reason I pulled out some of these as the highlights is, again, with the experience conundrum of, how am I supposed to get experience if nobody will give me the opportunity? Well, another important thing to do when creating your resume and cover letters is to think a little bit outside of the box in terms of your experience. So, for instance, I have on here that I was, coordinator of Women's Ultimate Frisbee team because I organized a Ultimate Frisbee tournament. That wasn't a job, that wasn't a class or an internship, but it's something where I used real skills and I learned things and it's relevant to the position. I also have resident assistant, which is, just a job on campus. It's not an internship, but, it's really important to think about how you can be creative with the skills that you use in jobs that might not seem so fancy or impressive, but if you can pull out what they're looking for and integrate that into what you've done, you'll get really far. So also, just to give you a glance of what the format looks like, here's the top of the resume with my name, phone number, email, website, and address. Have the education up top. For the most part, when you're looking for internships and maybe your first job or two, you'll put your education at the top, but as you get more experience, you should really put your work experience at the top, because people, for the most part, are going to care less and less about what your GPA was and where you went to school and what sort of awards you got. Of course, if it's a company where they do care about that or they ask for GPA, include it, but that's just a general rule of thumb. And then this is something embarrassing to note. You'll see a big red X. I'm not sure if you can read it, but that says page 2 of 2. I submitted a 2-page resume for this internship, and the second page was essentially all design experience, which had nothing to do with the marketing and events position. Luckily, of course, as you heard, I got away with it. They might not even have looked at my second page, but in our experience and time talking to, again, hiring managers and recruiters across the board, a 2-page resume is a big no-no, especially for those in our community who are probably only either still in school or 1 or 2 years out of school. So I know it can be rough because sometimes you might have a lot of different experience that you feel relates, but what you have to do is really be concise. And say for instance you're applying for a social media job and you had 2 internships where you were monitoring social media accounts and writing social media copy. Instead of saying essentially the same skill and experience in both jobs, say it in the one where you did a better job. So again, talking about those results, if you grew the followers at your first internship by 70% and at the second one only 30%, use the 70% in that, that bullet, and then use in that second section for the second internship, highlight something else in a different experience. Don't waste space essentially saying the same thing. So now I'm going to talk about our good friend Julia, who helps us with the blog and can be seen at many of our events. This is a resume and cover letter that landed her her job at Bitly, where she is currently believe, the customer support manager. So she has, since this first job, been promoted, which is very exciting. So again, really important and helpful to take the job description and pull out what's important. So some of the things I highlighted, of course, is what the job would be doing, which is answering support emails of their giant community of users. They want someone who's internet savvy, who's a great communicator, killer organizational skills, not overwhelmed by a big inbox, and very important here, inspired by the idea that your work directly contributes to building a community. That makes the world a little more interesting. And then, of course, again, communication skills. They have the word communicate so many times in this description, that you're calm, you're a problem solver, that you're excited to work in a startup environment. And hopefully, they ask if you have the familiarity with certain tools, Zendesk, User Voice, or CRM tools. That's great, but they do note that is not necessary. And of course, what do they ask for? For you to attach your resume and a writing sample. Again, when companies are asking for these special supplements, be sure you give them what they're asking for. We actually recently, for our internship hiring process, asked for something specific like this, and I think about a third of the people who applied didn't include it. And again, for us, we had so many applicants that was something we used to just eliminate people right off the bat. So I am in love with Julia's opening paragraph. I'm going to read the full thing aloud because I think it's fantastic. Dear Bitly team, my name is Julia Wilson and I wanted to reach out to you to share my interest in the community support opening. I use Bitly daily and I always have an enjoyable experience due to the simplicity and intuitive feel of the site. I recently downloaded the new iPhone app and I used it constantly since it's now so much easier to text my friends bitmarks. I find on my computer and quickly want to share. Oh, sorry. More importantly, though, I love how Bitly has made it possible for everyone to share and manage our favorite links quickly and seamlessly on the web. Wow. I want to hire her just from reading this opening paragraph. It is so clear that not only is she a user, but she is so aware of what their high-level mission is. And that's what so many companies really care deeply about. They not only want your skills and experience to be a fit, but they want your core values to be a fit with their core values. And they want you to understand what their high-level mission is so that you'll really enjoy being a part of working towards that goal. And again, pulling out the exact sentence of where she's relating this paragraph to what part of the job description. She also starts off by saying "Dear Bitly team" because she didn't have a name of whoever this would be going to. So I think using that sort of phrase of "Dear X team" is a great solution if you don't know the exact name. So to go through some of these highlighted parts and how they relate, one of the things they wanted is excitement about working in a startup environment. And so Julia notes the two different startups that she has had experience at, Foursquare and ShowMe. And she starts out by saying that she has experience managing support inquiries from over 400 small business owners and merchants through Zendesk and email. So specifically saying, yes, I've done exactly what you're looking for at a large volume. Again, results and numbers I think are very helpful and impressive. She also talks about user outreach support via phone, email, and user voice. Again, another tool that was not required but requested. She reported feedback to developers, which that was a part of the description as well, that they wanted people who could relay information well. And she also noted that she hosted occasional workshops at conferences, which shows she not only has great written skills, but she must be a great verbal communicator and speaker if she's able to present in front of groups of people. Okay, so again, talking about why she just would be so thrilled to be in this position. She talks about how she loved being at both, again, two startups because she found it extremely rewarding to help people gain the best experience possible and to solve issues as quickly as possible. Again, they asked for a problem solver. This is great. I love this sentence. I genuinely enjoy hearing use cases and feedback from passionate users. Bitly is one of my favorite online tools, and I would love being there to help other Bitly users feel supported as they navigate the site. Again, so clear, hitting us over the head with the fact that she is a user, she would love this role, and she just wants to be a part of making Bitly users' experiences fantastic. So here's her closeout. I really hope we can schedule a time to talk further about my interest in this position. I can always be reached via phone and email. I have also attached a resume and included a writing sample below and applied formally via the website. Thank you for your time. All the best, and her name. And again, very important because they asked for it, she provided a writing sample, which was a blog post from her blog that she did on her own. And again, for those of you often struggling with the problem of not having the experience that you need, again, this is a great example of getting experience on your own terms. Julia started a blog that she's had for a few years now, and it's really helped improve her writing skills and gives her great assets like writing samples that she can send to employers. So I just wanted to give a quick overview of what her resume layout looks like. You can see it's different than mine, which is totally cool. And I'm just going to quickly jump to it. I kind of cut it in half so you can see the two different parts. So, the one thing I would note about this resume format is that I think it's usually really great to be consistent. So you can see that Julia has work experience, and at Show Me, she sort of lists out all these different bullet points. And then at these other work experiences, at these other companies, she's just got these paragraphs where she talks about, what the company is and what she did there in more of like a paragraph sentence form. So I think both forms are acceptable, but it's great to stick to one. Consistency is really important, and it's just nice to look at and easier to skim. Of course, again, she still got the job, so it wasn't anything that stopped her, but that would just be my suggestion to make her resume stand out even more and be even better. Okay, and so the next person we're going to talk about is another great volunteer and friend of ours, Steph Lippett. And this resume edit that I did with her was really just an overall touch-up. So it wasn't for a specific role or a specific company, but we were just sort of going through and revamping and making some changes that would be beneficial for any company or job that she'd be applying to. So I thought it'd be fun to show a before and after of some bullet points. So here we played a little bit with formatting and also wording. So you can see in the first chunk, which was her original version, it had a little more spacing, variation, and tabs, and it also was a little bit longer. So the main things we did here was, for instance, she had one bullet point that says consulted on special projects, and then there's a bullet below that says helped copy, edit, and put together the DC 75th anniversary book. Something I told her was, saying that you helped on special projects is so vague and pretty generic that it's not really worthwhile to put in. So what we did was we just cut that part and turned the bullet point into copy, edited, and assisted in production of the DC 75th anniversary book, which is a much stronger way of stating your experience. In the first run of her resume, it said, helped copy, edit, and put together. And in the second one, we have much stronger verbs, copy, edited, and assisted. If she helped copy edit, then she copy edited. So you want to use really strong, powerful verbs and kind of avoid those passive ones like helped. So another one that we kind of tweaked and switched around was, again, losing that helped verb. So we changed helped organize the library and create the DC library organization system. We changed that to implemented and maintained DC library organization system. It's great because it's, again, a much stronger verb. It puts her more in the place of doing the project and doing the action as opposed to just helping with the action, and makes it seem like more of a continuous role where she maintained it. And it's good to try to use different verbs, so you're not just saying helped, 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 helped. You know, we have copy edited, we have implemented, bug tested, so it's good to always mix it up and choose different verbs when you can. This next resume story is from another Steph, different from the one before. Steph was one of our fantastic New School volunteers at our last Find and Follow Your Passion conference. We were so impressed with her enthusiasm and willingness to learn through her volunteer experience, and I spent some time with her giving her feedback on her resume. She is a freshman, so I thought it'd be good to show, again, a very early resume edit back and forth for those of you who might be extremely early in your career. So I know this is a faraway screenshot, but I just wanted to give you the overall vibe of her resume and format, because what this tip is about is really formatting. So as you can see, we have 2 pages here. It's very spread out, and as I mentioned earlier, 2 pages is a big no-no, especially if you're just starting out. But hers wasn't actually 2 pages. It was 3 pages. She also had a skills section similar to Steph Lippett in the past example, where she was talking a lot about her personality traits and her experience and not necessarily hard skills. So for instance, she has able to multitask and manage a space, dedicated to customer service, good critical and analytical and informational writing proficiency. So, you know, things like those aren't really skills. Those are sort of personality traits and experiences. So those are things you want to address in your bullet points. Usually for skills sections, they're looking for hard skills. So what programs do you know? So we went from 3 pages to 1 beautiful, easy to read, great formatted 1-page resume. So I won't get into the nitty-gritty of, you know, what exactly she changed, but you can see this was just, you know, a huge step up. You know, a lot of what she did was play around with the formatting to do some condensing. You know, she had double-spaced her header, so that was an easy way to get a ton of extra space. You know, a lot of you really ambitious folks out there are probably often dealing with the issue of how do I fit everything on 1 page? So, you know, there's 2 answers to that. One, being really concise and diligent with making sure you're only including experience and skills that are relevant to that specific job. And number 2 is being a formatting wizard. So knowing how to really, you know, play with margins and font sizes and spacing when possible. But you don't need a fancy program. I've done resumes in InDesign and I've done resumes in Google Docs. So don't feel like if you don't have a fancy program you can't make a nice resume, because that's totally not true. It just takes a little bit of time and experimentation. So when in doubt, customize more. As I mentioned in the beginning, the #1 thing that we hear from recruiters and hiring managers is they want to know that you want to work for their company in the specific role that you're applying for, not that you are just willing to work at any company at any role, that you just need a job. Which is hard, because a lot of times we might be in a position where we do feel like we will take any job because we're desperate. We have student loans, we have bills to pay, we're living in New York City, one of the most expensive places to live in the country. So it's definitely a struggle, but again, I can confidently say that if you do take the extra time to look for companies and jobs who you're truly interested in and passionate about, and you can show that through your application and your resume, that you will get better responses. And I'm not saying that every cover letter and resume you spend a good 2 hours on instead of 15 minutes is going to definitely get you a response, because it's still a numbers game, and there's still a lot more that goes into the application process than just your resume and cover letter, but it's definitely going to up your chances by a ton. So that would be my #1 tip, and if you leave with anything from tonight, it's to spend a little more time on each application and resume and cover letter so that you can get better results. So what now? I'd love to spend the next 10 minutes, 15 minutes doing Q&A. I saw that a lot of you had questions throughout the workshop. If you wouldn't mind just copying and pasting and chatting them to me once again, so I don't have to go back and scroll, that would be fantastic. So if you can just type your questions in again, that would be great so I can make sure I don't miss any. I'd love for you all to set one goal for the next month. So I'd love it to be challenging but realistic. Saying that you're going to spend 5 hours on every application might just not be doable, but in terms of the 5 hours remark, it is, I think, important to use numbers when you're setting goals so that you can actually hold yourself accountable. So a couple of goals I might suggest is, in the next month, update your resume every week or once a week. Make one change once a week so that it's more manageable and less overwhelming to do a total revamp on your resume. Another good goal might be to add 3 results-oriented bullets. So take some bullets that are fairly generic and add some specific ones where you have some good solid numbers to back it up. Another good goal might be to learn a new skill. So do you find that there's a certain program that people are constantly asking for that you don't know? Maybe that's a sign that it's worth the investment to download the free trial of Photoshop and take a free Photoshop class, or pay for a class if you have the funds and you like to learn in person, or watch one of the thousands of free Photoshop YouTube videos that are allowed online, or put online. But I think a great goal is to take initiative to get some of that experience by creating a project on your own time that will be able to show employers that you're proactive and that you can learn the skills that they want. Of course, we encourage you to attend our upcoming events. We have a lot more for the summer, and as I mentioned, we've even already confirmed our 4th installment of our full-day conference, Find and Follow Your Passion, for Saturday, November 9th. But in terms of the short term, we have a really fun mixer that's coming up this Thursday at the Wix Lounge, and we're going to have a keynote from a creative professional from ESPN. So it'll be a pretty casual style event, and really for the most part it's for you to meet other young creatives in the city, from interns to recent grads. So that'll be really fun. And then, of course, as I mentioned, this workshop is really specifically in prep for our Summer Opportunity Mixer, which is our career fair style event where you will meet dozens of reps from all different types of companies, ranging from large companies to smaller startups. It's a 2-hour event from 6:30 to 8:30 on Wednesday evening. And in terms of some logistics, I saw someone ask, what should you bring? Definitely bring lots of copies of your resume. One of the most impressive things that I saw at our last conference was one of our favorite community members, Denise, had actually created a different resume for each company that was there. So she really took this advice to heart, and she had actually saw, what positions were open, and she created a folder with a sticker with their logo on it and her name on the front, and had her resume and her cover letter. I mean, that was super impressive, and I'm sure it took her a lot of time, but that's the type of thing you can do to stand out. Of course, Lana, one of our great volunteers, mentioned to bring business cards. Moo Cards is a fantastic place to get business cards, and they're really fun. You can be creative with them. If you go to our website, nycreativeinterns.com, you will see an ad on our site for Moo Cards. We're actually an affiliate, so if you want to help support us and you're planning on buying business cards, if you click through that link, we'll get a little bit of credit. In terms of dress code, pretty much for all our events, the dress code is business casual. So, of course, you want to look nice, dress to impress in a sense, but don't feel like you have to come in a full suit and tie. We are creative, so we're a little less formal than that. But if you're ever worried about the dress code, it's always safer, I think, to overdress than underdress would be my suggestions. And also the great part about our mixer is that not only, of course, will you be able to meet these representatives in person and hand them a resume and a business card, but you'll actually be required to submit your resume through our online portal, and we'll be creating resume books for all these reps. So not only will they be able to meet you in person, but they'll have this book as a reference so they can, what recruiters call, build their pipeline. So maybe there's not an open position for you at this moment, but they loved you, and they loved that you loved their company and you knew everything about them and you were so excited to work for them. So, again, maybe the budget's not there, the role is not there at this time, but they'll have your resume on file for future use.